Title: Crimson Heaven Rebirth. Chapter 1. The Demon's Brand. The sky above the Crimson Flame sect roiled with ash-colored clouds, a fitting veil for the disgrace about to unfold. Outer disciples gathered in tight clusters, their eyes flickering with a mixture of scorn and curiosity. At the center of the arena knelt a bloodied figure, Jiang Chen. "Useless trash," someone muttered. "How did he even get into the sect?" another sneered. "His spirit power hasn't moved in 3 years." Jiang Chen gritted his teeth. The coppery taste of blood filled his mouth, and his arms shook from the weight of the iron shackles binding him. His face, battered and bruised, still bore the stubborn glint of defiance. Elder Wei, the enforcer of outer sect law, raised his voice. "Jiang Chen, you are charged with theft of sect resources and defying your senior disciples. By decree of the Discipline Hall, you are to be cast into the abyss of ruin. If you survive, the heavens have not forsaken you. If you die, it will be as the heavens willed." A murmur swept the crowd. The abyss of ruin was no ordinary punishment. It was a death sentence masked in ceremonial words. Few ever returned from its depths. Those who did were no longer the same. Jiang Chen didn't protest. He had said everything he could. The theft was a lie, a trap laid by senior disciple Mu Yao, whose pride had been wounded after Jiang Chen defeated him in a rare moment of spiritual clarity months ago. That moment had sparked fear. A cripple shouldn't have had the power to touch an inner disciple, let alone draw blood. "Throw him in!" someone shouted. 2 guards hoisted him up. Jiang Chen met the eyes of Elder Wei, and for the briefest moment he thought he saw hesitation. But it passed. With a heave, they hurled him off the platform. Jiang Chen plummeted into darkness, wind howling in his ears. The jagged rocks of the abyss of ruin blurred past him. He closed his eyes. So this is the end. He awoke to silence. The world was dark, cold, and strangely still. Jiang Chen coughed, spitting blood. His limbs ached, and he was certain his left leg was broken, but he was alive. "How?" he whispered. The abyss stretched around him, a canyon of black stone and choking mist. The ground beneath him pulsed faintly, as if something ancient slept within the earth. Crawling forward, dragging his injured leg, Jiang Chen spotted something glinting in the gloom, a shard of metal, jagged but reflective. He looked at his reflection, his forehead burned. A mark, crimson and jagged like a thorned crown, had seared itself into his skin. It glowed faintly, as though alive. "The Demon's Brand," a voice echoed. Jiang Chen froze. From the mist a figure emerged, or rather, a wraith. It had no legs, only tattered robes that drifted above the ground. Its eyes were hollow, its voice ancient. "You are the vessel. The blood of the Asura flows in you. The seal has broken." Jiang Chen backed away. What are you?" "A remnant," the spirit said, "a guardian of the Crimson Heaven inheritance." Suddenly, images flooded Jiang Chen's mind. A war in the heavens, a crimson blade cleaving stars, a man with eyes like twin suns roaring against celestial executioners. The vision ended as abruptly as it began. Jiang Chen gasped for breath. "The Crimson Heaven Asura spirit sleeps within you," the remnant whispered, "and now it stirs. Rise, heir of ruin." Energy surged through Jiang Chen's veins. His broken legs snapped into place. His spiritual sea, long dormant, boiled. For the first time in years, Jiang Chen felt power, real power, and above all, rage. "Mu Yao," he growled, "you tried to bury me. You should have made sure I stayed dead." Hours passed. Days. Jiang Chen used the strange, dense energy of the abyss to cultivate. His spiritual sea expanded rapidly, fueled by the Asura spirit's awakening. He found shelter in a collapsed ruin at the edge of a blackened pool. There he meditated, allowing the Asura energy to shape his meridians. He broke through the first layer of the spirit foundation realm, then the second. He did in a few days what had been denied him for years, and when he emerged, the demon's brand shone like a star. Back at the Crimson Flame sect, rumors stirred. Mu Yao lounged in the inner courtyard, sipping spirit wine. "Shame," he said mockingly to a group of admiring juniors. "That crippled Jiang Chen didn't even scream on the way down. I expected more." But his smugness faltered when a low tremor rippled through the mountain. The abyss of ruin roared. A figure shot from its depths, cloaked in blood-red energy, eyes burning like coals. Jiang Chen had returned, and the sect would never be the same again. Chapter 2. Awakening of the Forbidden Veins. The dawn broke with a blood-hued light over the Cloud Dragon sect's outer mountain range. Mist clung stubbornly to the peaks, and dew formed glistening pearls across the wild grass. Deep within the bamboo grove, Chu Feng sat cross-legged, his breaths measured, his focus absolute. The events of yesterday, his branding as a demon child, the sudden burst of power and the mysterious voice, lingered in his mind like an echo in a cavern. Beneath the surface of his calm exterior, turmoil brewed. His dantian, once dormant and useless, now pulsed with unfamiliar energy. It wasn't the ordinary spiritual energy practiced by the disciples of the sect. This was something older, more primal. It felt like a roaring tide of chaos veiled beneath calm waters. "What have I become?" Chu Feng muttered, his fingers brushing the edge of the demon brand still etched into his forearm. It hadn't faded. If anything, it glowed faintly under the morning light, as if alive. "You're awakening," came the voice again, but this time it was clearer. Not just in his mind, but resonating with the very air around him. He sprang to his feet, scanning his surroundings, heart pounding. "Who's there?" he called. The bamboo trembled. A figure materialized from within the mist. Tall, draped in black robes with crimson threadwork resembling twisted serpents. The face was obscured beneath a cowl, but the aura was unmistakable, powerful, ancient, and oppressive. "Your blood remembers," the figure said, his voice like wind through dead leaves. "Your veins are not like the others. The seal has broken." Chu Feng stood his ground. "What are you talking about?" The figure extended a pale hand. "You carry the blood veins of the forbidden lineage, once hunted, now lost, but your reawakening will change that." Confusion gripped Chu Feng, but a spark of understanding flickered in his mind. His parents' disappearance, his inexplicable resistance to cultivation methods, the torment he'd endured in the sect, all of it had been leading to this. "If I accept this," Chu Feng said slowly, "what happens to me? You will become what the heavens fear." The figure reached out, pressing 2 fingers against Chu Feng's forehead. A searing pain erupted through his skull, cascading down to his heart. Visions flooded his mind, wars among the stars, beasts that devoured worlds, and a man cloaked in black flame. When it ended, Chu Feng collapsed to his knees, gasping. "Your forbidden veins are now open," the figure said, "but you must survive their trials. Do not return to the sect yet. Seek the burial grounds of the Dragon Kings. There lies your first test." "Why help me?" Chu Feng croaked. The figure paused. "Because I was the last of the forbidden lineage before you. The heavens will hunt you. The earth will curse you. But if you endure, you will surpass even the gods." As the figure vanished into mist, Chu Feng rose unsteadily. The bamboo grove around him suddenly felt smaller, the sky heavier. He looked down at his hands. Lightning flickered beneath his skin. A storm was awakening, and he was its eye. Chapter 3. The Crimson Mist Domain. The sun had barely broken over the eastern cliffs when Chu Feng departed from the misty cloud sect, a new sense of purpose fueling each step. The events at the inner court had confirmed one thing. The power within him was not a curse, but a storm waiting to be unleashed. He followed the ancient path toward the Crimson Mist domain, a forbidden territory buried deep within the Azure Dragon mountain range. Legend spoke of its thick crimson fog, a poisonous haze said to consume the spiritual energy of even the most skilled cultivators. But rumors also whispered of an ancient inheritance hidden at its heart, a remnant of the long-lost Crimson Flame sect. As Chu Feng journeyed through thick forests and shadowed ravines, the air around him grew heavier. The mist thickened slowly, staining the air with a dull red hue. It was suffocating. Even his spirit power strained to sense beyond a few meters. "This place, it resists spirit energy," Chu Feng murmured. He pressed forward. By midday, he stood at the threshold of the Crimson Mist domain. A vast canyon lay ahead, blanketed in rolling crimson fog. A massive stone arch marked the entrance, etched with ancient runes, pulsing faintly with red light. Drawing a talisman from his pouch, Chu Feng held it before the gate. The symbol on it glowed, resonating with the runes. With a hiss, the stone arch shimmered and parted the fog briefly, allowing him to enter. Inside, silence reigned. Not even the sound of wind dared pierce the suffocating haze. Visibility shrank to mere feet. Chu Feng's steps slowed as he channeled energy into his ears and skin, letting his other senses guide him. The deeper he went, the more the domain pushed back. Hallucinations danced at the edge of his vision. Faint voices called his name. Shadows slithered across the fog. Suddenly, the ground cracked beneath him. He leapt just in time as the earth split, and from it emerged a humanoid figure wrapped in black cloth, a mist wraith. "A guardian," Chu Feng muttered, recognizing the tales. The mist wraith lunged. Chu Feng rolled aside and countered with a surge of lightning energy. His aura crackled violently, illuminating the mist in arcs of silver. The wraith hissed and swirled through the air, reforming behind him. A fierce battle ensued. Chu Feng ducked, struck, and evaded with relentless agility. He summoned a thunder talisman and cast it at the ground. A blinding flash erupted, dispelling a portion of the mist. Taking advantage of the moment, Chu Feng channeled his core technique, the divine lightning 9 strikes. Energy surged through him as he delivered a rapid sequence of thunder-charged blows, dispersing the mist wraith into vapor. Panting, he pressed onward. Hours passed, and finally through the mist a shape appeared, a floating temple suspended over a crater of red crystal. "The Crimson Flame Altar," Chu Feng breathed. He stepped forward, unaware that dozens of crimson eyes watched from the mist behind. Chapter 4. The Whispering Stone Platform. The clouds hung low over the skyward cliff, casting long silver shadows across the jagged outcroppings below. Wind howled around the summit, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that chilled the bones of even the boldest martial cultivators. Chu Feng stood at the edge of the platform, his robes whipping violently in the wind, eyes fixed on the crescent-shaped stone formation ahead. Elder Wei's voice echoed in his mind. "When the Whispering Stone Platform calls to you, do not hesitate. Step forward and let your heart be judged." Chu Feng had been skeptical, even as he made the climb. The path here had been treacherous, winding through beast-haunted ravines and snow-covered slopes. And yet he had felt it, a pulse, soft but insistent, like a beckoning heartbeat from the summit. It wasn't just the legend that drove him now, it was instinct, deep and primal. As he approached the platform, he noticed carvings along the stone. They were ancient, etched with scripts long forgotten by even the most venerable scholars of the 9 provinces. The air thickened, vibrating with spiritual energy, as if the stones themselves were humming in anticipation. With a deep breath, Chu Feng stepped onto the Whispering Stone platform. The world shifted. A ripple spread out from where his foot landed, expanding in concentric circles across the platform. The wind ceased. The sky stilled. Silence consumed the cliff. Then came the voices. Whispers, hundreds of them, seeping up through the stone like the breath of ghosts. They spoke no known language, and yet Chu Feng understood them. They spoke not in words, but in emotion, fear, rage, sorrow, resolve. "Who are you to seek our strength?" the whispers asked in unison. "I am Chu Feng," he replied, voice unwavering. "I walk the path of the Asura. I do not fear your trials." The platform shimmered. A beam of light erupted from its center, striking the sky with blinding brilliance. Chu Feng shielded his eyes, but did not step back. He had come too far. The light faded, revealing a figure seated cross-legged at the center of the platform. It was an apparition, translucent and old beyond reckoning. His robes were tattered, his face gaunt, but his eyes burned with celestial fire. "You speak boldly, child," the apparition said, "but boldness is not enough. Will you bleed for power?" Chu Feng stepped forward. "If need be, I will bleed rivers." The apparition's eyes narrowed. "Then come. Let the test begin." Suddenly the platform broke apart into floating fragments. Chu Feng fell into darkness. He landed hard on a frozen plain. Snow whipped across the landscape, but the sky was crimson, like the color of spilled blood. Across from him stood a beast of nightmare, a wolf the size of a house, its fur matted with gore, its eyes twin suns of hatred. "Slay the spectral dreadhound," the apparition's voice echoed. "Only then shall you advance." Chu Feng drew his sword. The battle was brutal. The wolf moved like shadow, biting and clawing with supernatural speed. Chu Feng was quick, but he was not invincible. Blood painted the snow. Twice he was knocked down, ribs cracked, his energy nearly spent. But each time he rose, and finally, with a roar that summoned every ounce of his spirit power, Chu Feng drove his blade into the wolf's throat. The beast howled, then dissolved into mist. The world snapped back to the whispering platform. The apparition watched him, now standing. "You bleed, you endure, you prevail." A mark burned itself into Chu Feng's chest, a sigil of ancient origin. Power coursed through his veins, hot and bright. "You are worthy," the apparition said, "but your path is far from over." Chu Feng collapsed to one knee, breathing heavily, the mark still glowing. He knew he had taken one step closer to mastering the Asura Path. Chapter 5. Flames beneath the frozen sky. The whispering stone platform shimmered into silence as Chu Feng slowly regained his balance. The glow of the sigil on his chest began to fade, yet its presence lingered, seared into his flesh and soul alike. He clenched his fist. His spirit energy pulsed with newfound strength, as though the very marrow in his bones had been reforged. But the platform was not done with him. From the periphery of the stone circle, symbols began to ignite, one after another, like falling stars across a parchment of darkness. The wind, once silent, howled again. Only this time it was not the sky that breathed, but the stone. Another challenge was awakening. Chu Feng stepped back cautiously, only to find that his body would not respond. He was rooted, no, bound. The sigil on his chest burned once more, brighter, fiercer. Then, the center of the platform cracked open, revealing a descent. Stone stairs leading into a narrow, spiraling shaft illuminated by blue flame. A voice, this one far deeper and older than the one before, boomed through the wind. "To wield Asura's might is to bear the flames of truth. Descend, child, into the forge of memory." Chu Feng had no choice. As he stepped onto the first stair, the world above sealed shut, and the descent began. The stairway narrowed with each turn, the blue flames growing closer, hotter, more alive. They did not burn him, but touched him like memories, distant echoes and regrets from lives not his own. He saw visions, a child torn from his family, a blade wielded against bloodkin, a throne claimed through slaughter, a smile turned into ashes. Each step was agony, not from pain, but from the burden of knowing. The deeper he went, the more the visions carved into his soul. They were not just illusions. They were truths buried in the Asura Path. lives that once carried the same mark now etched upon his chest. By the time he reached the bottom, Chu Feng's eyes were glassy, his breath ragged. He had seen lifetimes of suffering in the span of minutes. At the base of the stairwell was a chamber. It glowed like a furnace, flames licking the walls, revealing murals of warriors falling in endless wars. In the center stood a crucible, massive, blackened, ancient. Above it hovered a sphere of fire, not ordinary fire, but one that flickered with crimson, violet, and silver hues. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. An inscription was carved into the crucible, S-Rim. Only those who temper their spirit in the flames of memory shall be reborn. Another figure emerged from the shadows. This one wore black armor made of molten obsidian, his face hidden behind a helm shaped like a screaming skull. His voice was emotionless. "You carry the first sigil, but to keep it, you must endure the trial of tempering." Chu Feng gritted his teeth. "I'm ready." The armored figure raised his hand, and the sphere of fire plunged into the crucible. Flames erupted, engulfing the chamber. Chu Feng was lifted off his feet, pulled by unseen forces into the heart of the crucible itself. The pain was immediate. Unlike the test of the spectral dreadhound, this was no battle of blades or energy. It was a war of will. The fire stripped away his strength, his thoughts, his identity. Each second inside the crucible felt like a lifetime of disintegration. The very core of who he was burned away. But Chu Feng did not scream. He focused inward, on his reason for being, his family, the humiliation he'd endured, the people who called him weak, and the vow he made under the stars, to rise above them all. As the flames surged, something awakened within him. A second pulse, opposite yet harmonized with the first sigil, an Asura flame. It burst forth from within, consuming the crucible's fire, replacing it with his own. For a moment, the chamber dimmed, then the light exploded, flooding every crevice with incandescent brilliance. Chu Feng stood in the center, his body glowing with threads of fire and darkness intertwined. The crucible had melted, leaving only the sigil on his chest, now joined by a second mark over his right shoulder. The armored figure knelt. "You have tempered your spirit and emerged reborn. You are no longer merely a bearer of Asura's will. You are its vessel." With a gust of wind, the chamber disintegrated. Chu Feng found himself back on the whispering stone platform, now silent and cold. But the world felt different. Every breath he took drew in spirit energy. Every heartbeat echoed with power. Lan Yueru stood nearby, eyes wide with shock. She had been waiting. "You were down there for a day," she said. "We feared the worst." Chu Feng looked at his hands. "I saw the worst, and I endured." He turned his gaze to the horizon. The sigil still glowed faintly on his skin, but deeper still, his spirit blazed. The Asura Path had claimed him, and he had claimed it in return. Chapter 6. Blood Oath Beneath the Moon. The winds howled across the cliffs, chasing away the fading warmth of twilight. Chu Feng stood alone on the now dormant whispering stone platform, the twin sigils pulsing dimly on his chest and shoulder beneath his tattered robes. A storm gathered far in the east, dark clouds lit from within by violet lightning. Something was coming. Lan Yueru stepped forward slowly. "You changed," she said softly. Chu Feng didn't answer immediately. His gaze was still fixed on the horizon, where the heavens seemed to tremble. The change was not a choice. It was demanded. She studied him. Though his face bore the familiar calm, there was something different in his eyes, an intensity, a furnace beneath ice. "Then you should know," she said, lowering her voice. "Someone from the Crimson Serpent sect was spotted entering the lower cliffs." Chu Feng turned. "Here already?" Lan Yueru nodded. "They're hunting for the whispering platform. Word of its awakening has spread faster than we anticipated." His fists clenched. The Crimson Serpent sect, one of the bloodiest branches under the influence of the demonic court, had long coveted the secrets of the Asura Path. If they reached the platform now, he didn't need to finish the thought. "We'll hold them here," Chu Feng said. "But I need to see Elder Wei. I need answers." They made haste down the winding trail from the skyward cliff, clouds thickening above like coiled serpents. As they descended, Chu Feng's mind raced with fragments of the trials, the spectral dreadhound, the forge of memory, and above all, the voice that had whispered not just power, but purpose. He remembered one particular phrase spoken by the armored figure. "You are no longer merely a bearer of Asura's will. You are its vessel." What did it mean to be a vessel? They reached the stone corridor that led to the outer sanctum of the skyward sect. The guards recognized Chu Feng and bowed, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. Inside the main hall, Elder Wei stood waiting beside a flaming brazier, the firelight casting shifting shadows across the cavernous walls. He turned as they approached. "I felt the platform awaken," the elder said gravely, "and I felt something else, a power that has not stirred in centuries." Chu Feng wasted no time. The Asura sigil burned into me, twice now. The whispering platform, the crucible beneath, it's all part of something far greater than what the scrolls say. What am I becoming? Elder Wei's expression darkened. He gestured to the brazier and seated himself beside it. "What you've become," he began slowly, "is a bearer of the blood oath of the Asura, one of the ancient seals forged in the age of celestial rebellion." Lan Yueru's eyes widened. "That's only legend." "No," Wei said. "It was suppressed into legend. The Asura were not merely warriors. They were judges, executioners, and reapers of heavenly betrayal. When the gods fell from the sky, it was the Asura who punished them." Chu Feng stepped forward. "You knew." "I suspected. When you survived the 9-spirit trial with your meridians intact, when you resisted the soul fracture poison at the age of 9, the Asura flame, hidden deep in your blood, was dormant, but the platform reawakened it." Silence hung for a moment, then Elder Wei leaned forward. "There's more. You must know the truth of your blood." Chu Feng froze. "My blood?" Elder Wei nodded solemnly. "You are not wholly mortal. Your mother was one of the Asura-blooded, descendants of the old Oathkeepers, scattered after the divine purge." Chu Feng's heart thundered in his ears. "I never knew her," he whispered. "She died when I was an infant." "Yes, but she died to protect your flame from being extinguished, and now the Crimson Serpent sect seeks to claim it, to use you to tear the balance of this world apart." Later that night, Chu Feng stood alone on a cliff, overlooking the valley of the sect. The storm now loomed overhead, thunder cracking like war drums. Rain began to fall, cold, sharp, cleansing. He lit a small lantern, shielding it with his hand. In the flickering flame, he whispered, "I will not let your sacrifice be in vain, Mother." The fire wavered in the wind, then steadied. In the stillness, the sigils on his skin responded, glowing faintly in rhythm with the lantern's flame. A presence stirred. From the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in crimson robes, face half hidden beneath a bone mask. His voice rasped like blades scraping stone. "Found you." Chu Feng turned slowly, sword sliding free with a whisper. "Crimson Serpent." The man chuckled. "The sect will pay handsomely for your corpse, or better yet, for the sigils carved into your soul." He raised a hand, summoning a tide of black qi that swept toward Chu Feng like a wave of ash. But Chu Feng was faster. Spirit energy erupted from his body, fueled by the twin sigils. Fire and shadow interwove, striking like coiled serpents. The two forces collided in a blast that lit up the night. The cliff crumbled beneath their feet, sending them crashing into the trees below. The duel was feral. The crimson serpent cultivator moved like venom, swift, deceptive, and cruel. He used forbidden arts, summoning phantoms of the dead and poisoning the air with hallucinogenic mists. But Chu Feng fought with the fury of the Asura, clean, relentless, unyielding. They clashed across rocks and streams, through trees that shattered like glass. Finally, with a roar, Chu Feng drove his blade into the man's gut and unleashed the Asura flame through it. The scream was not human. As the crimson-robed figure dissolved into nothing but smoke, Chu Feng knelt, blood dripping from his lips. His energy was spent, but his will held strong. Above, the storm passed. The moon emerged, blood-red and full. Lan Yueru found him moments later, her expression torn between relief and terror. "They'll keep coming," she said. "I'll keep standing," he answered. And beneath the red moon, Chu Feng drew a line across his palm with the tip of his sword. Blood welled, glowing faintly. He pressed his palm to the earth. "By blood I vow, no enemy shall claim the Asura Path, not while I draw breath." The ground shuddered, and somewhere deep in the forgotten heavens, something ancient stirred in response. Chapter 7. The blade that weeps blood. The silence of the mountain shattered with a single tolling bell. Chu Feng's head snapped up from meditation, his pulse echoing with the resonance. It was not a call to war, nor a signal of alarm. It was the bell of sorrow, a sacred chime that rang only once every generation from the inner sanctum of the Heaven Asege Pavilion. Its sound was heavy, mournful, and absolute. Lan Yueru turned pale. "Someone has drawn the blood-weeping blade." Chu Feng stood. "The cursed weapon," she nodded. "Sealed for 3 centuries. Only those chosen by fate can unseal it, or those mad enough to risk eternal damnation." A shiver passed through Chu Feng. The blood-weeping blade was not a mere sword. It was a relic of carnage, forged from the bone of a slain demon god, quenched in the blood of 1,000 innocent souls. It was said to whisper to its wielder, tempting them with power, while gnawing at their sanity. Without a word, Chu Feng turned and made for the mountain's inner passageways. Lan Yueru followed, her hand hovering near her sword hilt. They descended into the depths of the pavilion, guided by torchlight and the echo of the bell. Soon they reached a sealed vault, its gates wrought from black steel and bound with chains of spiritual gold. At its center, a sigil glowed, fractured. The seal had been broken. Inside, the chamber swirled with blood-colored mist. And there, floating above a jagged altar, was the blade itself. It was long and curved, crimson from hilt to tip, etched with runes that pulsed like veins. It wept tears of blood that dripped to the floor, evaporating into vapor with a hiss. And standing before it, hand already outstretched, was a young man. He wore the robes of a disciple, but they were stained with ash and tears. His eyes were wild, yet hollow. Chu Feng recognized him, Bai Yuchen, third-ranked inner disciple, quiet, dutiful, unremarkable, until now. "Bai Yuchen," Chu Feng called out, "step away from the blade." Yuchen turned slowly, eyes unfocused. "I failed them. I couldn't protect them, my family, slaughtered by the Crimson Lotus sect. The elders refused to help. They said justice would take time." He looked back at the blade, but the blade doesn't ask for patience. It offers strength now. Lan Yueru stepped forward. "That sword will consume you. You'll become no better than those you hate." Yuchen smiled, bitter and broken. "Then I'll be a monster that slays monsters." Before they could react, he seized the blood-weeping blade. The chamber screamed. Spiritual energy lashed out in a vortex, slamming Chu Feng and Yueru against the wall. Red lightning danced across the air as the sword drank deep from Yuchen's soul. His body convulsed, eyes turning black, veins bulging. When the storm calmed, Yuchen floated above the altar. His robes were shredded, replaced by writhing shadows. The blade pulsed in his hand, whispering in tongues older than language. Chu Feng stepped forward. "Yuchen, listen to me. That power, It's not salvation, it's a chain. Yuchen's voice was warped, a dozen echoes beneath his own. Then let me show you how a slave fights. He surged forward. The duel began in a flash of crimson and silver. Yuchen's blade howled as it clashed against Chu Feng's Asura energy, flinging sparks that burned the stone walls. Each strike carried the weight of sorrow and rage. Chu Feng was pushed back, barely parrying the blade's unpredictable arcs. Lan Yueru tried to interfere, but the sword released a scream of anguish that froze her in place, choking her breath. Chu Feng summoned both sigils, the first sigil and the Asura flame, forcing them to converge. Shadows and fire wrapped around his sword, forming a burning crescent of resolve. "You're not the only one who's lost everything," he said, voice low. "But I won't let grief blind me." With a cry, he unleashed his strongest technique yet, Flame Piercer Severance. His blade slashed the air, tearing a rift through the mist. The strike met Yuchen's sword mid-arc and shattered the bloodlight around it. Yuchen screamed, not in pain, but in anguish. The blade fell from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a wail like a dying god. He collapsed. The shadows receded. The chamber fell silent. Chu Feng caught him as he fell. Yuchen's body trembled, his eyes now human again, tears spilling freely. I just wanted to be strong," he whispered. Chu Feng nodded. "Then live, atone, and become strong without losing yourself." Lan Yueru picked up the blade, wrapping it in spirit seals, her hands trembling. "We'll reseal it deep where no soul can reach." As they emerged from the vault, dawn was breaking, and in the east, storm clouds gathered. Another trial was coming, one that no blade, weeping or not, could face alone. Chapter 8. The Soundless Roar. The storm that once raged beyond the veil of trials had dissipated, leaving in its wake a silence too heavy to be natural. Chu Feng emerged from the crystalline ruins of the Temple of Reversal, his robe scorched and his breath ragged. The air tasted of ozone and ash, remnants of the divine lightning that had scoured his soul in Chapter 7's final test. Lan Yueru awaited him at the base of the shattered stairs, eyes filled with a mix of fear and admiration. You survived the Wrath Invocation." Chu Feng did not speak. He couldn't. The test had stolen his voice, if only temporarily. What echoed within him now was not silence, but a roar, a silent scream of transformation. The second sigil over his right shoulder had deepened in hue, darkened with layered energy. It was no longer just a mark. It was a seal of acknowledgement from the will of the Asura Path. As he stepped forward, the sky overhead rippled. A massive eye, ethereal and endless, opened across the heavens, casting its gaze solely upon Chu Feng. The entire mountain range trembled beneath its weight. Elder Wei once said the eye only opens for those who alter fate itself, Lan Yueru whispered, stepping back. The eye blinked once. In that blink, the world shifted. Without warning, the ground cracked beneath Chu Feng. A chasm tore open beneath his feet, revealing a spiral descent of black stone and purple flame. Before he could resist, his body was pulled downward, swallowed by the void. He landed in a void cavern, a hollow beneath reality itself. Floating within the darkness was an altar, slick with ancient blood and surrounded by statues of chained titans. They wept without mouths, their agony eternal. A voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. To walk beyond the Asura Gate, you must forge the soundless roar. What is it? Chu Feng's voice finally returned, dry and hoarse. The essence of presence without form, a strike without a sound, a power felt only after it has passed. A phantom of himself appeared before him, cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing with violet fire. "This is your next opponent," the voice said. "To defeat the soundless roar, you must silence your own fear." The battle began instantly. His doppelganger moved without sound, without warning. Every blow struck not flesh, but intent, shattering concentration, warping perception. Chu Feng could not anticipate. His instincts were too slow. His spirit energy dispersed every time he struck, scattered by the lack of resistance. "How do you fight what makes no sound?" he muttered through gritted teeth. Then he understood. He stopped moving, closed his eyes. He no longer sought the phantom's presence. He became it. No thought, no fear, no resistance. Only flow. When the doppelganger struck again, Chu Feng pivoted, not against it but with it. He redirected the blow with a spiral of spirit energy so subtle it made no sound. His sword found its mark, but not through force, through acceptance. The phantom dissipated, the statues stopped weeping. From the altar, a new mark emerged, hovering before him. This sigil pulsed not with power, but stillness, a concept turned into energy. As it embedded over his left palm, the cavern collapsed into spiraling starlight. Chu Feng rose, his body weightless, and found himself standing once more at the summit of the silent cliff. Lan Yueru had tears in her eyes. "You disappeared for 3 days," she whispered. I thought the soundless roar had consumed you." Chu Feng raised his left hand. The new sigil pulsed, and for a moment the world muted. No wind, no breath, no heartbeat. But then it returned, louder than ever. "The roar did not consume me," he said, voice resolute. "I became it." Lan Yueru stepped beside him. "Then it's true. The third gate will open for you." In the distance, beyond the third peak, ancient bells began to toll, bells that had not rung in 100 generations. The final test was awakening. Chu Feng turned toward it, the 3 sigils on his body pulsing in rhythm. He no longer followed the Asura Path. He walked at its forefront. Chapter 9. The Shattered Sky. The winds howled over the battle-scarred plains of the blackened ridge, carrying with them the scent of blood, fire, and the stench of desperation. The clash of steel rang out like thunder, each strike echoing across the broken earth. Chu Feng stood at the forefront, his body a living beacon of flame and shadow, his spirit ablaze with the power of the Asura Path. The battlefield before him was a vision of chaos. His forces, battered but unbroken, fought with ferocity, their eyes wild with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. Against them, the forces of the Blood Sovereign advanced relentlessly, a sea of red banners and dark-armored warriors, their hatred palpable in the air. Beside him stood Lan Yueru, her face a mask of determination. She was no longer the timid, unsure girl who had once doubted his path. In the fires of battle, she had found her strength, and now her sword was as deadly as any of the Asura blades. Chu Feng turned his gaze to the horizon. There, atop the bloodied cliffs, stood the Blood Sovereign himself. His figure was cloaked in black, his eyes glowing like twin coals in the night. The aura he radiated was suffocating, a crushing weight that seemed to press against the very air itself. "Lan Yueru," Chu Feng said, his voice low and steady, "keep the others safe. I will deal with him." She nodded, her grip tightening around her sword. "Be careful. He is no ordinary foe." Chu Feng gave her a single, fleeting smile. "I am no ordinary warrior." With that, he strode forward, his every step shaking the earth beneath him. The air seemed to crackle with energy, the temperature rising as his Asura flame surged within him. Each breath he took was filled with the burning essence of the Asura Path, his body a furnace of raw power. The Blood Sovereign stood motionless, waiting, his cold eyes fixed on Chu Feng as the two forces collided in the distance. When Chu Feng reached the foot of the cliffs, the Blood Sovereign raised his hand, signaling for his forces to halt. "At last you have come!" The Blood Sovereign's voice boomed, carrying across the battlefield. "I have been waiting for this moment, child of the Asura." Chu Feng's eyes narrowed as he took in the Blood Sovereign's towering presence. "Your reign ends today." A sinister smile tugged at the corners of the Blood Sovereign's lips. "You think you can defeat me?" I am the one who has commanded the blood of the 9 provinces. I am the master of the path you walk. I have seen the truth of your power." The blood sovereign raised his arms, and the sky above them seemed to split open. From the rift descended countless shadows, creatures of darkness, their eyes gleaming with malice. They were the embodiment of the blood sovereign's will, his loyal minions, and they surged forward to consume all in their path. But Chu Feng did not flinch. He drew his sword, the blade gleaming with the fire of his soul, and advanced toward the blood sovereign without hesitation. The shadows descended on him, but with a single slash they were torn asunder, their forms evaporating into wisps of smoke. "Impressive," the blood sovereign said, his voice tinged with amusement. "But you will need more than that to defeat me." Chu Feng did not respond. Instead, he focused inward, tapping into the deepest reservoirs of his Asura flame. His spirit energy surged, and his body erupted with power. The ground beneath him cracked, the air around him shimmered with heat. With a roar, Chu Feng charged. The blood sovereign raised his hand, and the shadows converged once more, this time in the form of a massive, writhing beast. Its jaws gaped wide, its claws like daggers, and it lunged toward Chu Feng with terrifying speed. But Chu Feng was faster. He met the creature head-on, his blade singing through the air with a deadly grace. The beast's claws scraped against his armor, but he did not slow. With a single stroke, he cleaved through the creature's chest, sending it crashing to the ground in a burst of smoke. The blood sovereign watched, his expression unreadable. "You are strong, Chu Feng, but strength alone will not save you." The sky above them darkened as the blood sovereign raised his hands. The air trembled with the sheer power of his command. From the rift in the sky, a massive darkened sphere descended, black as night, swirling with ominous energy. It crackled with power, sending arcs of lightning dancing across the battlefield. Chu Feng could feel the weight of it, the suffocating pressure of the blood sovereign's will bearing down on him. But Chu Feng was undeterred. He stepped forward, his sword raised high. "I walk the Asura Path. I do not fear your darkness." With that, he unleashed a torrent of flame, an inferno of spirit energy that surged toward the sphere with the force of 1,000 storms. The two forces collided in an explosion of light and sound, the very air around them trembling as the sky itself seemed to shudder. The impact was cataclysmic, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the energy clashed in a maelstrom of destruction. For a moment, there was only darkness. And then, slowly, the smoke began to clear. Chu Feng stood amidst the ruins, his body glowing with the fire of his spirit. The blood sovereign was nowhere to be seen. The battlefield was silent, save for the soft crackle of the dying flames. But then, from the smoke, the blood sovereign's voice echoed, dark and triumphant. "You are strong, Chu Feng, but you are not invincible." A figure stepped from the shadows, a figure that was no longer the blood sovereign as he once had been. His body was twisted, his form an amalgamation of shadow and flame, a monstrous creature born of hatred and ambition. "I am beyond mortal reach now," the blood sovereign snarled, his voice a low growl. "I will devour your soul and take your power for my own." Chu Feng raised his sword, his grip firm. "I don't think so." The battle for the 9 provinces was far from over. Chapter 10. The Twilight Pact. The celestial moon hung like a silent guardian above the ruins of the Temple of Broken Oaths. Its pale light spilled across shattered marble and scorched earth, casting long shadows that danced like forgotten ghosts. Chu Feng stood alone amidst the wreckage, his robes torn, face bruised, yet his posture unbowed. Blood crusted along the edge of his blade. The battle against Elder Mo's corrupted disciples had left its mark, not just on his body, but on his soul. They had been brothers once, fellow cultivators sworn to the sect's ideals. But greed and power had twisted them, and the artifact buried beneath the temple, the ember of withered stars, had consumed what little humanity remained in them. Behind him the wind stirred faintly, bringing with it the scent of ash and the soft footfalls of Lan Yueru. "You should rest," she said gently, her voice a balm after the chaos. Chu Feng didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the stone circle at the center of the ruins. It had once been a binding seal. Now it was cracked, dark energy leaking from its core like black mist. "I can't," he said at last. "Not yet. The seal's breaking. Whatever was trapped beneath it, it's waking." Lan Yueru stepped beside him. Her presence steadied him, even as the wind grew colder. "Do you think it's the same force that corrupted Elder Mo?" she asked. Chu Feng nodded slowly. "No doubt. The ember isn't just an artifact, it's a key. And someone, maybe even from within the Heavenly Rift sect, wants to use it." Lan Yueru's eyes narrowed. "Then we can't face it alone." "No," he agreed, "which is why I must return to the hidden Asura vault." She looked at him, startled. "That place nearly killed you." "It also showed me the truth," Chu Feng replied, the sigils on his chest and shoulder flickering briefly with faint light. "The legacy of the Asura Path isn't just about power. It's about duty, sacrifice. The vault holds the remaining fragments of the celestial cauldrons, and with them, knowledge we need to face what's coming." Lan Yueru hesitated, then nodded. "Then I'll go with you." Before he could argue, she met his gaze firmly. "Don't waste time trying to protect me. We've come too far, and whatever happens next, it will require both of us." Chu Feng allowed a brief smile. "Very well. We ride at dawn." The journey to the hidden Asura vault took 3 days. Through shattered valleys and storm-racked passes, they pressed onward, the land itself seeming to mourn the collapse of ancient pacts. Spirit beasts had grown restless. The skies often darkened with flocks of ravens that circled and screamed before vanishing into mist. On the evening of the 3rd day, the vault came into view. An obsidian spire thrusting from the base of Mount Tianhuan, its entrance sealed behind 7 concentric doors of stone and flame. The last time Chu Feng had entered, it had been alone. Now the path recognized him. The first seal flared with a pulse of red light and split open, then the second. One by one the gates yielded, until the final one opened with a roar, revealing the antechamber beyond. The vault had changed. Where once there had been silence, now there was hum, an ambient vibration, like a low chant uttered by unseen voices. The sigils on Chu Feng's body responded, glowing in unison as he stepped across the threshold. Inside, the walls shimmered with new inscriptions, Asura glyphs but intermixed with celestial runes. Lan Yueru touched one. These are fusion markings," she murmured, "blending human and divine essence. It's forbidden. Lost knowledge even among the upper sects." Chu Feng approached the center of the chamber. A pedestal stood there, upon which hovered a fragment of glowing metal, the 5th ember, known in legend as the core of twilight. He reached toward it. As his fingers brushed the fragment, a rush of visions overtook him. He stood before a battlefield of stars, celestial beings locked in combat with titanic Asura warlords. He saw the forging of the celestial cauldrons, each poured from molten fate and divine sorrow, and he saw a pact, a promise forged in blood between 2 ancient enemies, that should the balance of realms ever falter, the chosen inheritor would rise to unite the fragments. Chu Feng gasped and stumbled back, the ember now pulsing in his hand. Lan Yueru caught him. "What did you see?" "Not just the past," he whispered. "A future war, a convergence of realms, and a choice. That must be made." She frowned. "What choice?" But before he could answer, the chamber trembled. A rift tore through the vault's ceiling, and a figure descended amidst lightning and flame, clad in crimson robes, a mask of bone concealing their face. I was hoping you'd come, the intruder said. The ember belongs to the Void sect, and you, Chu Feng, you have what we need to unseal the 8th cauldron. Chu Feng rose, blade in hand. Then, come take it. The masked figure's aura exploded outward, a vortex of void energy crackling with chaos. Lan Yueru moved beside Chu Feng, her own spirit flames igniting. The chamber erupted into battle. Minutes passed like hours. The masked figure wielded a spear of darkness, every strike tearing rifts into space itself. Chu Feng's blade met it, empowered by the resonance of the 5th ember. Lan Yueru fought with graceful precision, her flame whips weaving through the air, disrupting the intruder's patterns. Still, the enemy was powerful, an elder of the Void sect, no doubt. Chu Feng could feel his strength waning, but also something else, the embers calling to one another. As the enemy prepared a final blow, Chu Feng channeled both sigils, the original from the Whispering Platform and the Asura flame from the Crucible. The ember in his hand ignited, fusing with the light of the sigils. With a cry, he unleashed a surge of power, a sweeping arc of light and fire that shattered the intruder's spear and sent him crashing into the far wall. The vault shuddered. Cracks spread across the ceiling and debris rained from above. The masked figure, wounded, snarled. "This isn't over, boy. The Twilight Pact will be fulfilled one way or another." He vanished into a swirl of black smoke, leaving only silence behind. Later, beneath a starlit sky, Chu Feng and Lan Yueru rested at the vault's entrance. "You could have died," she said, wrapping a cloth around his arm. "So could you," he replied with a smile. Lan Yueru looked up at the stars. "Do you think it's true? That the realms will converge? That war is coming?" Chu Feng nodded. "I saw it. In the vision. A storm unlike any before. And the celestial cauldrons, they are the keys to survival." She was quiet for a long moment, then reached into her pouch and drew out a scroll. "I didn't show you this before. It's a map from the Forbidden Archives. It marks the resting places of the 6th and 7th cauldrons." Chu Feng stared at it, then at her. "You knew where they were?" "I suspected, but I didn't want to push you, not before you were ready." He took her hand. "I am now." Lan Yueru met his gaze. "Then we'll go together." The embers of dawn began to rise over the mountains. Chu Feng stood, the 5th ember still glowing faintly at his side. The Twilight Pact had been revealed. The war had not yet come, but its first drums had begun to sound, and he would meet them with fire and blade.